One who has been in hand-to-hand combat will never forget it. In the overwhelming majority of cases, the bayonets were the first to be thrown by our fighters. For the Nazi troops who attacked the USSR, the Red Army's ability to fight with bayonets, knives and sapper blades was also a surprise, like the T-34 tank, Katyusha and Russian snipers. Georgy Savchenko was born on the 20th of June, 1925 in Krasnodar. Georgy Georgievich got to the war as a 17-year-old boy. He went through the entire war as a Marine, and met victory in Prague. Here is his story, where he describes Malayan condition combat stress, when a person's psychological and physical qualities are exacerbated to the limit. Stories about hand-to-hand combat, we usually hear from former infantrymen, but in 1940 there was a unique case. The German tanker Altmark was carrying 300 captured British sailors in the hold. Poor fellows thought they were already doomed, but suddenly this sea jail was discovered by aircraft. The tanker disappeared into one of the rocky fjords, however, the dashing English destroyer Cossack burst in there. The Germans and the British converged on the sides, and it was at this point that the long-forgotten pirate boarding technique was used. 25 British sailors were able to disarm the Germans. Opening the hold, the sailors shouted, "The fleet is here," and this cry was taken up by the prisoners. The next day, the Cossack was greeted with "Lee in England." Since then the phrase "the fleet is here" has become the battle cry of the British sailors. I remember hand-to-hand combat well. The one who has been at least once in this will remember it for the rest of his life. I often dreamed of these nightmares later. It was even worse in them than in a real battle. The worst thing for me was the expectation of an attack, and then you just need to overcome yourself, your fear, throw your body out of the trenches. After all, what is an attack? You run bayonets at the ready, and whoever has machine guns they shoot on the go. You can't shoot with a rifle on the run. You still have to reload it, but during the run it's impossible to do, so we almost did not shoot during the attack. You can't stop, you need to get close to the enemy as soon as possible, until he comes to his senses after our artillery barrage. A huge mass of people is running across the field and the cry of hooray turns into some kind of terrible, uterine sound. It spreads across the entire field, and one thought beats in my head: I would rather run and grab the enemy's throat and beat him. To beat for everything, for the lost friends, for the torn cities and villages, for the fear that you feel before an attack. The Germans in my first battle left the first line of trenches destroyed by our artillery, and almost all of them retreated to the second line. We jumped over the trenches, and finishing off the Fritzes on the move, rushed to the second. Almost nobody fired. The Germans realized that we will sweep them away now. We only had to run a little to their second line. They simply didn't have time to stop us from small arms. We just had to run to the German trenches to decide the outcome of the battle, because it is very difficult to defend against the enemy who attacks you from above. The Germans were at a disadvantage, of course, in close combat. An assault rifle is a handy thing, but this is only in the movies. Every German has a submachine gun. In fact, most of them were armed with rifles, which also need to be twisted to reload, which means losing precious seconds, which are simply not there in close combat, and the Germans got up and went to meet us. Can you imagine two avalanches going towards each other, and then they overwhelm each other and warriors rush across the field, roar, screams? I saw Kostya, the Siberian of the German, on the bayonet threw over himself, like a piece of fluff. This is how the peasants, during haymaking, threw hay over the haystack, threw themselves with heaps of hay. It seemed that he was doing ordinary peasant work, and a German was running towards me of tall stature. Then he seemed to me a giant. His face was twisted and terrible, and saliva stretches down his chin. His face is so ominous that I even felt scared. I forgot about the carbine that I had in my hands. He runs with a rifle at the ready, and a bayonet at the end, and with a running star tries to pierce me with it. I somehow mechanically took a step to the side, grabbed the rifle by the barrel and pulled it towards me. He lost his balance, began to fall over. I let go of his rifle, and he fell. Then I remembered that I also have a carbine with a bayonet attached, and with all my strength, as far as I still had left, hit the fallen German with a bayonet. I killed a man for the first time and hit him with such force that the bayonet pierced him through. Even the front sight of the barrel plunged into his body, and another German turned out to be next to me and hit me in the jaw with such force that he immediately knocked it out for me. Sparks fell from my eyes and my mouth did not close, and even I stood unarmed. My carbine was stuck in the killed Germans and I didn't have the strength to pull it out. This German probably would have finished me off. But at that moment Gordievich jumped up, our sergeant, an experienced soldier. He always had a sharpened sapper blade with him. He told us that he never went on the attack without it. Gordievich always told us that the shoulder blade is the second most important thing for a soldier in battle, after a rifle. Lay down somewhere during the shelling in the ground, you can bury yourself, which means you have more chances to save life, and if they come together in hand-to-hand combat, then here the shovel is an irreplaceable thing. It is much more convenient for it to work in the trench than a rifle. So he killed a German with this shovel, otherwise my first fight would have been my last, and then he helped me to pull the carbine out of the German, because without outside help I could not do it. Gordievich looked at me, and then, as he punched me in the jaw, sparks fell from my eyes again. Then I regained consciousness and I felt my mouth began to close again. I grabbed the jaw with both hands in surprise, and I looked at Gordievich with dismay, until I realized that he had provided me with such a radical method of medical assistance. All this happened in less time than I'm telling you about it. There is no time to yawn. Here either you will kill or die. Again rushed into battle, and a certain feeling of confidence arose that we would now break them. It seemed that my reaction and my feelings sharpened several times. My whole body, all my consciousness worked to save my life. The German still only looks in your direction, swings, and you already know what you will do, how to get away from the blow, finish him off. I did not hit with a bayonet from the full swing, so as not to remain unarmed again. It was enough only a small attack towards the enemy to do. It seems that he just touched him slightly with a bayonet, and he is already starting to fall. I did not know that the human body can be easily penetrated with a bayonet and managed to kill a couple of Germans in this battle, but I just fought in silence. I was all afraid that if I screamed and opened my mouth, I would immediately lose my jaw, and then the Germans could not stand it and ran.
У тебя в голове. Ты знаешь, что тебе делать, как тебе поступить, то ли тебе стрелять, то ли тебе, понимаешь, колоть, то ли тебе отойти в сторонку. В общем, это явление необыкновенное. Необыкновенное. Кто хоть один раз был в рукопашной, тот помнит ее на всю жизнь.